Good evening, everybody. And first of all, may I wish you all a happy new year. Following the end of the initial COVID-19 legislation supporting virtual meetings, Planning Committee is now being held using a hybrid approach, with all members of the committee present in the Council chamber. When necessary or chosen to do so, officers and speakers are able to join the meeting courtesy of the WebEx IT system. This meeting is also being broadcast live on the Council's YouTube channel, and the record will be archived for future viewing. Any members of the press and public who are unable to be here in person may listen to proceedings via this broadcast. For those present in the chamber this evening, we are continuing to apply COVID-safe measures, and notes of these are available within the chamber. The participants in this meeting will be the councillors concerned, the officers advising the committee, and any members of the public or ward members registered to speak in the public speaking arrangements. Registered speakers will be able to address the meeting when invited to do so, either in person or remotely via the WebEx platform. When necessary, officers are able to read out the written statements submitted in advance by registered speakers. Supporting PowerPoint slides will be presented to members during the meeting where provided. As the chairman, I will use my discretion as to the order in which participants speak and will announce whom I wish to speak. May I remind officers and members participating this evening that during the meeting, all participants are in control of their own microphones and should keep them muted unless speaking. With regard to declarations, if a declaration is required after the meeting has started, this should be announced in the usual manner. With regard to voting, may I remind members of the committee that you are only allowed to participate in the vote if you have been present for the whole agenda item, including the officer's presentation and debate. The usual procedure rules apply to debate during the consideration of the agenda item, and I, as chairman, will have absolute discretion. If I, as the chairman, wish to adjourn the meeting at any point, I will announce the adjournment and inform you how long the adjournment will be. Excuse me. I can confirm at this meeting this evening we have the following members as listed on the agenda papers for this evening, which are Councillors Mrs. Maggie Allen, Councillor Butler, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Clements, Councillor Cole, Councillor Davies, Councillor Goff, Councillor Ryan, and myself, Councillor Grinsell. Mr. Acton, do we have any apologies for absence?
There are no apologies this evening, Chairman.
Do we have any declarations of interest? None, thank you. Requests of members to address the meeting?
There's one this evening from Councillor Andy Hodgson, which is on the application at 176 Tamworth Lane, Shirley.
Thank you. And item 4, questions and deputations.
There's one request this evening from Mrs. Sheila Cooper on the item 14 of your agenda, which is to do with appeal decisions.
Thank you. The Planning Committee forward has been noted by members. Thank you. And we have the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I have Councillor Davies, thank you, and a seconder? Councillor Caldwell, thank you. They're taken as approved. The Solihull Local Plan Policy is taken as noted. Yes, thank you. And as we have received a deputation this evening, it is my intention to move forward agenda item 14, which is the appeals report, because the deputation refers specifically to the appeals report. Ms. Allen, would you care to just brief us on the agenda before I introduce Mrs. Cooper? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The appeal decision report that is in your update packs tonight, members, includes 4 appeals. Most notably, the first appeal cited is Waste Lane, Hodgson Lane and Truggus Lane, Berkswell, which is to do with a HS2 application and lorry routing through Balsall Common, and that application was dismissed. We as a council also won 2 other applications. The first at Orchard Road, Hockley Heath, and the second was at Pro Lodges on Blackfurs Lane, which was for the formation of 388 new car parking spaces on the premises there, which is obviously it's an identified business site, but the car parking spaces were to be sited on Greenbelt land, and you as members supported the officer recommendation of refusal that time, and we've won the appeal. The last appeal on our sheets was Chester Road, which was allowed as appeal, and that was for household extensions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Kim. Therefore, following that, can I ask Ms. Cooper to present her deputation? Ms. Cooper, you have 4 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. The first comment is on the HS2 Schedule 17 application appeal dismissal. I and the affected residents welcome the Planning Committee's refusal and the Inspector's appeal dismissal. We are, however, questioning why HS2 Limited is still able to use the A452 Kelsey Lane haul route. HS2 Limited's manipulation of the numbers of HGV lorries using Kelsey Lane by applying a previously unheard of multiplier, i.e. minimum number of HGVs times the number of construction sites, has ensured the above decisions have had little or no effect on HS2 Limited working patterns. En route observations suggest the majority of lorries only access and egress the Waste Lane site. The Inspector at 10 page 3 and throughout the notice shows deep concerns for the safety of every individual transiting for whatever purpose Kelsey Lane. The Inspector, while commending the provision of the Hall Meadow Road Station Road haul route, did not appear to understand there is no consent presently in place for HS2 Limited to use the land. No consent, no haul route. The financial implications of all of the above for this council and the inspectorate are huge, with HS2 merely manipulating the rules according to themselves to enable the status quo to be maintained. The dangers on Kelsey Lane and on the rest of the route remain ever present. I ask for this committee's comment on the implications of HS2 Limited merely thumbing their noses at us all, and on where responsibility will ultimately rest if accidents do happen. The second appeal decision I wish to comment on is the IAC Group Marston Green. I again welcome the part the Planning Committee and everyone played in achieving this decision. It was clearly finely balanced, but an appropriate appeal dismissal. I ask this committee to look particularly at pages 1 and 2 of the notice to ensure the council's enforcement officers take appropriate action in relation to, and I quote, the engineering operation that has taken place adjacent to Unit A and which has been enclosed by an area of fencing, and how the planning position for this will be resolved. While having no bearing on the appeal, the inspector thought it noteworthy of a mention. Breaches of planning permission require action to set precedent and prevent breaches in the future. I welcome the importance the inspector clearly placed on Greenbelt policy within the framework and the need to show conclusively that very special circumstances exist. Conserving and protecting the Greenbelt and its ecology and biodiversity is vital if we are to meet our climate emergency goals and strategies. Thank you for well-considered Planning Committee decision-making and for allowing me to address you all this evening.
Ms. Cooper, thank you very much indeed. From commenting on your deputation, Ms. Cooper, naturally these applications have been considered and decided upon by this committee, and obviously therefore by the inspectorates following their appeals. So it is not something that this committee can go back and redress. So to try and assist in some way, I am therefore asking our head of planning to write to you directly in respect to the comments you've made in your deputation. Is that all right?
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Mr. Cooper, for your time. You're very welcome to stay, but I'm sure you have more pressing needs. We now move on to the first application that is in respect to 2 Station Approach Doorage on pages 13 to 48 of our packs. Is that you, Ms. Allen Kim? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just get the PowerPoint to share. Thank you. That's not on my screen. I think that's on. Okay, thank you, Chairman. I'll carry on. Members, this application seeks the construction of timber frame single-storey extensions plus first floor extension, cladding of structure, forming of new timber fencing to boundary, alterations to fenestration, erection of railings, change of use to drinking establishment with extended food provision, which is all sui generis. And this application is partly retrospective. I think, members, before I start my presentation, I would like to draw your attention to the update note. And that demonstrates that since writing the report, we've received an additional 4 third-party representations of support to the application. But we've also had further comments from the Knoll, Doorage and Bentley Heath Forum. And here, I want to make clear to you as members that the officer's report states that the neighbourhood plan policies VC2 and VC3, and they relate to conservation areas, are in accordance, this proposal's in accordance with that. I want to be explicit, that is the officer's view, but it is not the forum's view. So I just want you to be very, very clear on that. And last of all, but again, this is an important point, part of the application we're considering today also includes the 1 additional hour of trading time. That is an additional hour from 11 o'clock to midnight on Mondays to Thursdays. Now, if you as members decide to approve this application this evening, the applicant will still need to gain a license from the council to do with the sale of alcohol. So there is a 2-pronged process that the applicant will have to follow there. Okay. And now I'll take you through the application. So on the screen, you'll see outlined in red, this is the application site. And it's located on a prominent corner within Doorage Village Centre. And in fact, this corner is also positioned very nearby to the conservation area. And the conservation area is the Station Approach Doorage Conservation Area. I've got a slide to show you where that sits. But just to point out and get everybody's bearings, because it's a corner site, it has 2 direct relationships with 2 different roads. We've got Station Approach here, where you'll see I'm showing you on screen. And that, as the name it suggests, takes you to the Doorage railway station. And on the other side of the site is Station Road, which around the point of the application changes to Grange Road. Okay, so I don't want anybody to be confused by that. And this represents the railway bridge and the railway line, which is directly next to it. I'm sure members in the room know Doorage well enough to visualise that this site does sit on a bit of a hill. So there is an incline, it goes uphill along Station Approach, and yet there is quite a significant change of levels between the application site and Grange Road and Station Road beyond. Okay, and again, the site is prominent to the wider village outside of the conservation area. You'll get glimpses of it from the Sainsbury's development. As I shared with you, the conservation area, the Station Approach Doorage conservation area, you can see that shaded in purple on the slide. And again, for your bearings, this is the application site. So the application site lies outside of the conservation area, but again, members, I'd remind you that from a planning policy point of view, in determining applications that have an impact on the setting of the conservation area policies apply. So conservation policies are applicable because of views into and out of the conservation area and the setting of that conservation area. And again, you'll know firsthand that this parade, which ends in the Forest Hotel, is a Victorian parade of mixed uses. The planning history is really important in this application, and I need to take you through it. And it starts back in 2017 as far as the applicant is concerned. But on the screen here is, and again, I'll try and blow that up for you because I can see it's quite difficult. I hope that's better. This is the original building. It was a bank for many years. So you can see it's a single-storey building located on this land. But in 2017, the local planning authority received an application for the conversion of that building and to introduce a first-floor terrace to it. It was approved, and therefore building works took place. And that approval did allow the change of use of that building to one of a mix of a drinking establishment and bar. Unfortunately, however, the applicant did not implement their consent correctly. And instead, they introduced a number of variations which had not got planning permission. And that's later in 2018, that brought forward a retrospective application to the committee, to the council, which sought to regularise the building works that had taken place. And most notably, a first floor element was included. I'll show you all the plans shortly. It was refused and it went to appeal. Now, there was quite a lag between the appeal being submitted and it being determined. The inspectorate had to find the right sort of conservation planning inspector to deal with it. So we finally got the outcome in October 2020, and that application was dismissed. Most notably, the inspector didn't support the proposal because of the impact and the prominence of that first floor addition. And that's where today's story starts, because that brings us up to date with this application that we have to consider this evening. And essentially, the applicant has come back to the council. They are wanting to make amendments to the proposal in order to overcome that harm. So this evening, that is what we are considering. If members feel that they cannot support this proposal, and as I say, I'll take you through those changes, then enforcement action will become alive again. Okay, so just want you to be aware of that. So let me carry on. So as I say, so we've had 3 applications, and these are represented on the screen. I'll blow them up for you, but in simple terms, on the left, each time I change page, the left is the approved scheme of 2017. The middle is how that scheme changed in 2018 and was refused, and that middle scheme became the appeal application. And on the right-hand side is the proposal we're considering tonight. So you also have your plan pack, but as I say, I'll do my best to make this so that we can see it a bit better. I can't get it any larger than that, members. But essentially, back in 2017, the change of use was to the building, which is here. And at the first floor, there wasn't to be development other than its use of that flat roof for a terraced area. And that terraced area was to be enclosed by, enclosed here, sorry, I'll get my, oh, I can't get my, it was to be enclosed where, if you can see that hand, and that was enclosed by a 1.8 metre high timber balustrade, timber fencing. Okay. And essentially, and again, another thing to point out, can you see this element? If you remember that photograph I've just showed you, that element was basically set to garden. It was all landscaping. Brings me on to the ground floor of the 2018 scheme, where construction had started, but again, it had gone off-piste. And essentially, what you see here, so again, we were on the ground floor. You can see here that the garden disappeared and it was set to a hard standing of, I've forgotten the word, paving. It was set to paving. Planting was introduced, and significantly, a tree was planted here, a silver birch. The original proposal provided for railings along this the perimeter here, but instead the applicant introduced a timber fence at 1.5 metres high. And that, again, was a deviation on the permission. In other respects, the actual building stayed pretty much as proposed and as approved. And again, it was clad in lark cladding, lark timber cladding. So this ground floor plan shows how the application, how the proposal seeks to change since that refusal and the subsequent appeal. So again, I'll talk you through this. The elevations make it much clearer. A ramp has been introduced. It was in fact introduced back in 2018. That's because it was a building control requirement for reasons of disabled access. So that was very necessary, and that cannot be changed if it's to be building control compliant. And remember, please, that there is a change in levels here. Today, the applicant proposes, and in fact has already done some changes to the site. The timber fencing, rather than being 1.5 metres, is proposed now to be 1.1 metres, which is in line with the original height approved back in 2017. Again, to take reference to the inspector's comments about the boundary treatment to the site, they are now seeking to open up the site more by removing some of those fence posts. And again, that elevation that I was talking about, that will make that much clearer. We now have a new picture window. A large window is introduced here on the station approach elevation facing towards the conservation area, and that removes some of the timber panelling, and in doing so helps lighten the building, and that also gives permeability through the building, so there's active views that are introduced. I can also show you on the next slide, we have a full landscaping scheme with all the details to it. So that's the ground floor and how that's proposed to change. This next plan shows the basement. I don't intend to blow these up particularly. In the 2017, the basement existed and it's provided here. And then in 2018, when building works took place, there was a change introduced, but it was simply to provide a bin storage area that you can see here. So that is the difference. And there is no changes to that proposed now. I will blow up the first floor elements because, again, that is significant. So this is the original 2017. As I shared with you earlier, it's a timber balustrade that encloses that space with a sedum roof. When construction started on site and the 2018 refusal, by that point, there was a first floor, it had been enclosed, and a number of Velux roof lights are introduced, as you can see here, running the span of the building. Another difference is that rather than build out that timber balustrade, it's actually now a 1.1 metre high glass balustrade. So it's a lighter feature to the building. The first floor proposed today for you, again, the glass balustrade remains. the roof lights remain, but there is a new glazed window, again, which is positioned above that ground floor one I just showed you, facing towards station approach. And in doing so, as I shared, that helps lighten the building and improve its bulk and mass. So these are the elevations, which, as I said, are probably easy to interpret, and it does bring to life what I've just talked you through on the floor plans. So again, this is to Grange Road or Station Road if people prefer that. So this is facing out away from the conservation area, and we have the railway bridge around here where if you can see that moving, on the right-hand side. This is the approval in 2017. This dark element emphasises that timber balustrade I was talking about. And behind it, if you can see that, just that white outline, that demonstrates some other timber, and behind that is a stair tower. And that stair tower was approved, and as you can see, it does expand above that timber, and it protrudes. That becomes the highest point of the building. We know now that that wasn't implemented, and instead in 2018, here is that first floor addition. So it encloses the stair tower, but also includes an area here. And internally, this space is used for seating. Again, a new window was provided on facing towards the Grange Road elevation, and clearly, because this is a new structure, neither did the window have consent. Today, this elevation has changed. Again, I'll start from the corner position. The timber fencing from 2018, that has now already been reduced inside back to the 1.1 metres. And can you see that there is more permeability here? It's much lighter. And this hasn't happened yet, but what is proposed is that every other fence post is to be twisted by 90 degrees. And by doing so, it allows greater separation between the posts and greater views into the building. You'll notice, of course, that this is actually elevated to the pavement level. And that is why this side of the building has a slightly different treatment to the conservation area side. There's also introduced here, and is proposed to be introduced, is an additional 100 mils of aluminium capping to the fascia on the first floor. And the intention of that is that it will help blend the timber cladding of that first floor and give a little bit more shadowing and a little bit more articulation. I think the photographs I will show you helps demonstrate that. Moving on to the conservation area elevation, which is to station approach. Again, at the top here, this is the 2017 approval. So that's how it started, again, with that high timber fencing and the 1.1 metre high posts. In 2018, here is the elevation that shows that enclosure. And again, this plan does demonstrate that the actual overall height of the building is negligible. There's negligible difference when you consider that staircase. But clearly, the mass of the building and the span of that has increased considerably. And again, we have here 1.5 metre high boundary fencing, which is much taller than the 1.1 metres proposed and approved. Moving to today, straight away, you'll see a difference. Windows are introduced on this elevation, the picture window I mentioned at ground floor and the first floor window above. There are active views through that window at ground floor, which will take you into the heart of the building where the bar is and the seating areas are behind. So it's going to be an interesting view with activity. And in turn, that window will provide some active surveillance out onto the street, which, given the fact that this is a bar, it opens it late into the evening, that will help with people's perception and safety in terms of walking up and down to the railway station. And that elevation, as I say, in my opinion, alters dramatically by the inclusion of these windows. The other change to station approach is here. We have now, this is the fencing along the side, and here every other post is physically removed because it's at pavement level. And this is, again, it allows that permeability into the site. It should allow better views of the landscaping that's proposed. And as I say, I can provide you with a photograph that helps to demonstrate that. This is the corner elevation here as you look at the building face on. And this at the bottom is the proposal now. And I think the thing I'd like to point out here is that there's a new window and doorway into the building on that elevation. Okay, so the entrance is twisted. So those are the elevations. This demonstrates the landscaping scheme which we have. And as you can see, there's good landscaping along its boundary to Grange Road, and those dark areas demonstrate additional planting, new planting, as well as this tree in the middle. It's a Himalayan birch tree, and again the report sets out that that would be introduced as a semi-mature species. There is some concern by the landscape architect of how well that will take, but again our conditions require that if it does fail, it's replaced within 5 years. And the way it will be planted is no different to this silver birch, which has taken very well. So there's no reason to think it won't succeed. Okay, so now we get to the interesting part with the photographs. Again, I think it would be helpful for me to zoom in. So this image demonstrates the building as it was erected back in 2018. And as you'll see, the materials are quite vibrant. The window frames and doorways are painted in teal, which is quite a bright, vibrant colour. And again, the wood, this was agreed through condition. It's lark wood, but it has been treated with a fire retardant, which is required by building control. And that has made the wood richer in appearance and more vibrant with it. And you'll see that as first built, this is the high 1.5 metre fencing that was introduced at its corner. Now, if we roll down, I've got two images. This one's in the summer and the one next to it is in the winter. And this is how the building appears today. And already some changes have been made which reflect the proposal before you this evening. The applicant has already repainted the first floor window frames in satin black. So you can see that, you can visibly see what difference that makes to the building already. So it does help dumb the building down, and importantly, it helps to provide that synergy with the conservation area next to it. Windows there are either white or they're black. So again, there is that that is reintroduced. The ground floor remains in teal, but if members approve this application this evening, that would turn into black also. So it dumbs down that vibrancy of the building. What hasn't been incorporated so far, but would change, again, I'm trying to show you right at the top of the building, here's that fascia I was talking about. And that fascia is to become deeper. So again, that just helps take the edge off the materials and give it that little bit more articulation, which in turn will help reduce some of that bulk. It won't see huge changes in isolation. And I'd also like to point out the landscaping, that now that fence has been reduced in height, pokes out over the edge. What hasn't happened here, members, is those fence posts I was talking about being removed, that hasn't happened yet. So that view would open up again if this is approved. This photograph was taken yesterday. So this is a view showing the winter scene for that building. And notably, of course, the difference here is that the silver birch isn't in leaf. And again, remember that there would be another tree in the middle of that land. So that is the scheme before us this evening. Here are images of, it's not the building clearly, but what it does provide is how that colour will dumb down with weathering. Now, members, because this is a conservation area, As I shared at the start, we need to consider the impact of it and any harm that this development does cause to the conservation area. Ever since 2017, the planning team have acknowledged that there will be some less than substantial harm to the conservation area. And because of that, we have to weigh it. Policies require you to weigh it against public benefits. Back in 2017, public harm is a sliding scale. So there's not one area. If at the very top, it becomes total harm and sort of demolition. We're nowhere near that. In 2017, we were quite near the end. It got worse. The harm became worse in 2018. But today, with these cumulative changes that the applicant has proposed through negotiation with officers do feel that that the impact this development has and its harm, the harm has reduced. It's only marginally higher than the 2017, but it's much less than the appeal decision in 2018. And what's also, members, I'd like you to bear in mind in terms of public benefits, they're page 24 of your papers. We know that this business has been operating for a number of months now. It employs the equivalent of 15 full-time members of staff. That in itself is a public benefit. And because this building is up, it's a viable business, and we know that that can be delivered. Other benefits that this scheme provides is that it provides another food offer to Doorage. This has been drawn out by the significant support the applications received by the residents of Doorage. So it helps the vitality and the viability of Doorage Village Centre. It helps the evening economy with those additions of the windows that natural surveillance is improved, and again, I feel it would be a safer place to be in, to access, to walk through and around. Neighbour amenity, we have a number of conditions in your planning pack which relate to noise at the site. They would have to be discharged through condition. But again, I'm mindful that the inspector in their decision, amenity was not part of the reasons for refusal. They felt that that mix of uses could be accommodated in the village without causing harm to residents above Forest Hotel and along that parade there. So all in all, members, we feel that the application is now at a point where officers are recommending approval, and that public benefit test has been met. So as I shared with you, with the conditions attached, the recommendations approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. A very thorough and well presented briefing. Thank you. We have two speakers or two representations this evening. The first being Simon Robury. Mr. Robury, you have 3 minutes. Please present to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman, councillors, officers. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to address you this evening. I'm Simon Robury, a Chartered Town Planner and the agent acting on behalf of Skogan. I am therefore obviously speaking in support of this application. As set out in the officer's report, the site has a long and complicated planning history. My client wishes to make it clear at the outset that, with hindsight, which is of course 2020, they deeply regret not having completed the development in accordance with the originally approved 2017 plans. This has led to considerable time and effort on behalf of themselves, your councillors and officers and members of the local community being expended in seeking to find an acceptable solution. We now believe, as do your officers, that such a solution has been achieved. Over a considerable period of time, we've liaised and worked closely with your officers to make amendments to the building that would, on one hand, address the concerns raised by the inspector at the appeal, and on the other hand, enable the current structure to remain with various enhancements, thus ensuring the retention of a viable business that supports the retail offer presented by Doorage Village Centre. As the report sets out, there's a range of amendments and enhancements proposed to the existing building, some of which have already been implemented, such as the reduction of the height of the perimeter fence and the introduction of significant planting. Each of the individual changes proposed may, if taken individually, seem to be modest. However, it's the cumulative effect of the changes taken together that need to be considered, as the report states. There is now greater weight to be placed on the public benefits achieved. The business is demonstrably successful, and the employment that it has created is actual and real, most of it for local people. It also makes a demonstrable contribution to the vitality and viability of the village centre, which is particularly important in these times of uncertainty and with the changing role of retail and service centres nationally, Doorage being one of them. The report concludes that unlike the appeal proposals, the public benefits now outweigh the harm. In terms of the consultation responses received, it's apparent that there is substantial local support for the proposals, which reflect the importance of the public benefits to the local community and to the local economy. I understand that members may have concern in respect of the modest extension of opening hours that are proposed. If you consider it appropriate, we would of course be prepared to accept a condition which limits this extension of hours for a trial period. In conclusion, I respectfully request that you approve this planning application this evening. Thank you very much and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. Roberry. We have a representation from Mr. Roger Cook from the Neighbourhood Forum. Mr. Acton, is that to be read out?
Yes, Chairman. This is from Roger Cook, the Knoll, Doorage and Bentley Heath Neighbourhood Forum. In the 9 months following the submission of this application, only minor amendments to the previously unacceptable scheme are proposed, together with an extension of opening hours. The Forum had hoped and indeed expected the Council and the applicant would have achieved a satisfactory resolution which more closely reflected the conclusions of the independent inspector. Regrettably, it does not, and therefore the Forum stands by its previous representations. The Forum wishes to emphasise that the neighbourhood plan supports and welcomes local businesses that comply with relevant plan policies and other relevant policies and guidelines. The Forum does not agree that these minor modifications to the refused scheme means that the development now complies with the policies of the Knoll, Doorage, Bentley Heath neighbourhood plan, as stated in the conclusion section of your papers. In addition, the report also only identifies the Solihull local plan as part of the development plan. The Knoll, Doorage, Bentley Heath neighbourhood plan is also part of the development plan, and its policies should carry substantial weight as they postdate the local plan. It is surely a reasonable expectation that applicants respect and abide by planning rules and regulations, as failure to do so undermines the integrity of the planning system and sets a bad precedent. The current development is unlawful, and it appears the applicant has not complied with the enforcement notice, which we understand is a criminal offence. Within the Planning Committee public document pack, reference is made to a non-planning matter alleging the Forum is not representative of the wider community. No opportunity was afforded to respond prior to the publication of the report. A full explanation of how the Forum operates is available on its website. Due process. Publication of the Planning Committee report pack on 22nd of December 2021, with a deadline for any response to committee of noon on the 4th of January 2022, has allowed minimal time for consideration of the lengthy report and due process, i.e. review, prepare and agree a response at a time encompassing the festive holiday period. This is clearly unreasonable. It inhibits transparency and has been an unacceptable intrusion into family time over the holiday period. It is also in sharp contrast to the generous time afforded to the applicant throughout this process, who has been allowed 6 months to comply with the enforcement notice upheld on the 2nd of October 2020 and to submit a second retrospective planning application on the 7th of April 2021, followed by 8 months to submit planning documents, most recently on the 10th and 20th of December, resulting in only minor modifications. The recent consultation expired on the 20th of December, truncated from the original 29th of December. The publication of the report 2 days later indicates that the consultation was irrelevant to the officer's recommendation. In conclusion, this application is not, in the forum's view, materially different to the previous application that was refused and dismissed at appeal. The forum remains concerned about the precedent that would be set by an approval and by the process that has been followed in consideration of the application. And there ends the statement.
Thank you, David. It is my responsibility to start the debate. The Council's standing orders require me to move the motion. Although I'm moving the motion, I'm still undecided on how I will vote. Do I have a second, please? Councillor Davis, thank you. Members who wishes to start the debate. Councillor Ryan, Happy New Year to you.
Chairman, and the same to you, and thank you very much. On the impact on the conservation area, if anything was a major impact on the conservation area, was this particular site when it's left in a derelict state for years. And when it was in a derelict state for many years, I didn't hear many people jumping up and down saying something must be done about this adjacent to a conservation area. That does not mean to say that I don't take very seriously any impact on the conservation area. I do. But this site, for me, that I know over many years, has been left derelict. And I think our decision in 2017 was the right one. I think it's a major improvement on that particular corner of Station Road. Chairman, at this stage, I would like to congratulate the officers in this marvellous report. I think it goes into enormous detail and gives us the background information which helps us to come to make our decision. Gives us the information from the inspector's decision, and all the detail in the report. Not wanting to embarrass the officer in any way, shape or form, but I thought the detailed presentation this evening was the best I've heard for many, many years, I would say. I'm not over exaggerating when I say that. And it helps us to come to a considered conclusion with regards to the application. Now let me turn to Station Road. We got the conservation area on the one side of Station Road, and the buildings on that side will be certainly higher. It's certainly higher than this proposed application. Next door, we've got the railway station on the one end, and we got a railway track running quite close to this particular site. I would like to commend the applicant in its initial stages of the application on the development of this site, because I think they did a very good job, and it fits in very neatly into that corner, and many people use it and sit and enjoy themselves having their coffee or wine or whatever it is. But what always irritates me is when an applicant receives approval and then exercises laterality on the decision and goes on in a kind of a cavalier fashion and starts doing things that they haven't got permission for, which gets them into almost enormous difficulty as we move forward. That's an issue. But of course, that is not illegal in itself. If they apply for retrospective planning application, doesn't make it illegal, but if the retrospective application is turned down, then it becomes illegal. So the applicant is right in being able to do what they're doing, and it's our decision to make it legal or not here this evening. Chairman, I couldn't vote against this particular application on what is being proposed. I think in the scheme of things, individually, as what's been said, individually, it's quite negative, but this cumulative effect makes it interesting for us to come to terms with it. But saying all of that, if the officers, in their summing up, can give assurance that the site will be monitored to make sure it complies with the application if it's approved, then I would be supporting the application, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan, as erudite as ever. Councillor Caldwell.
Thank you, Chair. And can I start by echoing Councillor Ryan's frustration that we're dealing with yet another retrospective planning application. I'm finding this one difficult, I'll be honest. I like this building. I like how it juxtaposes with the conservation area. It reminds me of when I used to live in Weston-super-Mare, where there are quite modern buildings set against the historic backdrop of the original fabric of that town. And it works well there, and I think it works well here. I'm not yet convinced, and I look forward to the contributions of the other committee members. I'm not convinced yet that the reasons for refusal and the reasons for dismissing the appeal are overcome by this application. And like I say, it's difficult for me because this is a successful business and this is to be welcomed, and it's a great location. It's right by the station. It's the kind of place that I'd like to go for an evening, quite honest. And I'm not sure it could be argued that it's any more out of keeping than the Sainsbury's development round the back of the conservation area either. My reading of the inspector's dismissal of the appeal was that she did so primarily on the grounds of the first floor addition on its own merits, not because of the nature of the materials or the specifics of the construction of that first floor addition. If you look at paragraph 32 of that appeal, it does mention the cladding and the window frame colours, but it says that it is an overbearing third story and that it is resulting in a building that is no longer subservient to the surrounding built development. Now, like I say, I'm not saying that this doesn't do enough to overcome it. I'm really not. I'm on the fence on this one. And like I say, this is why I would like to hear what some of my fellow committee members like to say. But at the moment, I'm not completely sold on approving this yet. And the reason I say that is because there's still going to be an overbearing third story there, quite possibly. So, like I say, I welcome others' opinion before I make my mind up on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caldwell. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I'll mirror what my colleague, Councillor Caldwell, has just stated. There are some improvements here. However, this was a significant deviation from that original approval, a significant known deviation that that resulted in an unsuccessful appeal, and now we're back here with a retrospective, you know. And I'm much the same as Councillor Caldwell. I'm 50-50 on this. I'm undecided because these seem like quite minor amendments to a significant problem. And I'm not sure that we have addressed that root problem. That root problem, from what I can see here, and again, I've read the same paragraph that Councillor Caldwell was talking about, is that third floor, that enclosed extension. I am struggling. I'm sorry I can't offer anything more at the moment, Chairman, but I am struggling with this one. Thank you.
Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Chairman. I, like my colleagues, you know, I do get annoyed when there are deviations from planning approvals. That being said, do I think that this building is a problem for the conservation area? I'm not convinced it is. As Councillor Ryan said, you know, the derelict building that was there before this business was, you know, an eyesore and something that needed sorting out. Now, what have we got here now? We've got a thriving business that's employing people and is an asset to the people in the village. If we were to refuse this today, I think we would just be we'd be punishing the applicant really for deviating from the application. Do I think that we should be punishing him for that? Not necessarily. I'm not convinced. I'm quite happy to support this because I think it's an asset to the local area. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. I think I personally tend to agree with Councillor Ryan and Councillor Goff at the moment. I was pleased to hear Mr. Rowberry acknowledge the way this has been handled by the applicant over the years, and I was a member of the committee at the initial approval. And that has certainly caused a great deal of angst. I'm saying I'm happy enough. Just I do have concerns about the opening hours. I'm not at all happy knowing that there are residential properties above the shops immediately opposite. That midnight is, from my personal point of view, is too late. I think 11 o'clock on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is perfectly acceptable for the resident, because my concern is not with your business, but with the residents local to those premises. I would potentially accept midnight on a Friday and a Saturday, but I'm not happy. Whilst there is a condition in there that subsequently has to also be considered by the licensing committee of this council, my recommendation would be that be amended to 11 o'clock and not midnight, but for Friday and Saturdays, and the rest of the condition would remain the same. I have never frequented the premises, the business. I have seen it both from driving past it and on foot. I take the point that Councillor Goff and Councillor Ryan have made, in that I also remember the derelict bank. I take on board that it is employing people in the locale, which has to be a good thing both from the economy and from the residents' point of view. So I'm happy with that. I haven't seen any of the hands go up, so I'm going to, sorry, Councillor Davis, I'll come to you in a second, Councillor Davis. But what I would say to the applicant and his agent, that should you get approval this evening, should you get approval, and it's not my decision, I'm one of 9, should you get it, then please adhere to the conditions and what we may or may not grant you this evening, because I believe this business is a successful business. I hope and I believe you have another operation in Knoll, and maybe you'll go on to further things. but you have to adhere to what we approve and not just go off at a tangent to do your own thing. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'll associate myself with the remarks of Councillor Ryan and others in relation to the officer's report and presentation. I welcome the changes that have been proposed or already carried out in some part of the application. I noticed that the fence had been reduced. It was quite noticeable immediately that that had been reduced. And yesterday, I noticed the windows had been upstairs have been changed from the teal colour to the black, and I felt that made a difference. It blended in slightly better. I think somebody's already said, and I would agree with it, and I'd written it down before they said it actually, but I think the Sainsbury's development had far more of an impact on Doorage than these premises. This is now a successful business. It's well frequented. I believe, from what I'm told by those of a younger generation, that there is a night atmosphere in there, and there's never any trouble. I can only think that the timber that was used, because the word Skogan translated is forest, and I think that perhaps that was something to do with the choice of cladding material in it being timber. In regards to the opening hours, I have to agree with you, Chairman. There are people living in the properties above the shops opposite, and perhaps Friday to Sunday at the hours requested. And of course, let's remember that applicants and other licensed premises can apply to stay open at bank extra hour or whatever at bank holidays. And next year, of course, we'll be having a very big bank holiday for the Jubilee. So there'll probably be, from what I've seen in the press, there could be four days of extended hours and a lot of headaches, no doubt. I've tried to look at this in a holistic manner. And I have come to the conclusion that I can now support this. From memory, I may have voted against it in the past, but I feel I can now support this. And of course, employment plays a part in it as well. We need to create jobs. We need to keep jobs going. We need to keep people working. And I don't think that in the long term, this building will be noticed once the next trees put in, the landscaping and all the rest of it. As I say, Chairman, I think Sainsbury's had a far greater impact than this building ever could. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Chair. Well, another retrospective application, especially when they moved away from the original plans. It causes great problems for everybody. But I've listened to members here tonight, and from what I gather, there is substantial support now from the residents for this building and this business. And it's an asset to the area that I think should be encouraged and developed. And they are employing local people. What's carried it for me is the change of the building and the landscaping. But I would, Chairman, like to say that I'm with you on the opening hours, and I think that should be tailed back slightly. But I can support this now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Right, I'm going to move toward the vote. However, the first thing to do is I basically proposed that the hours be curtailed somewhat, so we need to vote on that. My suggestion, members, would be that if you look at page 31 and the condition 6. The use hereby permitted shall operate only between the hours of 10 and midnight, Monday to Saturday, and between the hours of 10 and 2300 on Sundays and bank holidays, etc. My suggestion would be that the use hereby permitted shall operate only between the hours of 10 and 11, Monday through Thursday, and midnight Friday and Saturday, and between the hours of 10 and 2300 on Sundays, bank holidays, etc. That I'm proposing. Do I have a seconder for that? Based on that, can I have a vote for show of hands for approval of that amended condition?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7.
So the condition can therefore be amended as I've detailed. Naturally, that would still have to go before our licensing committee for approval of that. So therefore, we come to the more substantive part, and subject to that amended condition, the recommendation is one of approval subject to conditions and the amended condition. Can I have a show of hands of those in favour, please?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Those against?
None against.
Remembering my words, please, your application is approved. The next item on the agenda is Green Farm, Lady Lane, 57 to 62. Who's present? Is that you, Kim? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This application seeks a certificate of lawfulness of existing use or development, and that's for the retention of the existing buildings, hard standing, shown on the plan, and the use of the site as a builder's yard, a repair shop, and store of plant, equipment, materials, HGVs, vehicles, tools, fuel and oil, and associated construction of equipment such as barriers, signage, materials, and fences, as well as being the base for employees. Now, members, it's not often that we bring applications such as this to committee, and the reason for that is this isn't a planning application. It's what it says on the tin. It's seeking a certificate of lawfulness, and that means that currently this operation has taken place for some time, and the applicant wants to demonstrate and wants to be able to demonstrate that the operation has been in continuous use for 10 years. And if you can do that, that means that the development has accrued a lawful status, and therefore enforcement action cannot be taken against it. So that is what the application seeks. And to do that, they have to provide evidence to the council so that, and this is the key words to remember, please, tonight, everybody. And the key words are that the evidence they produce provides on a balance of probabilities. It's that balance of probabilities that you as decision makers need to have in your minds. That the existing use and development has been in that continuous use for 10 years. So it's balance of probabilities. This is a legal test. It's not one that we're looking at policies. It's a yes or a no on that balance. And because of that, the assessment of the proposal has been given over to our legal colleagues. It's normal process. That's what we do every time. And our legal colleagues have assessed the evidence that has been submitted to us. And you'll see from the conclusion that they do feel that on the balance of probabilities, this development has taken place for continuously over 10 years. I can show you some slides which in my mind you know, provides that evidence, but we do have additional information too. So looking at the slides outlined in red, this is the parcel of land that the application relates to. You'll see there's also a blue parcel of land. That simply means that that land is owned by the same person as the applicant. But the blue land is not subject of its decision tonight, okay? We're simply looking at the land in red. And this is how that land in red is laid out. Recognise you won't be able to read that, but this red outline demonstrates buildings, and those buildings are used for storage and workshops. There's also a WC there and some storage elements. To this side of the site, there's a number of tanks which contain fuel and oil, for example, and then the remainder of the site is given over to storage, so that's where the vehicles would be. In front of the site, it's a concrete apron, so that's purely hard standing. This plan comes to life when we start to look at the aerial photographs. And as members know themselves, happily, aerial photographs have been around for many years now, so you can do a compare contrast over the years. This one here is Green Farm, taken in 2009. And again, on screen is simply the application site and nothing more. And that, of course, is what we're looking at today. So already we know that in 2009 that operation existed. The next slide is another 4 years on in 2013, and again it looks much the same. Next slide is 2016. Again, the operation exists. I would point out it seems to have extended into that blue land. Now that is not part of the application, and that doesn't benefit from planning permission, and therefore is an inappropriate use in this part of the Greenbelt. And members' enforcement action is already taking place on this, because the following slides show that that has actually grown in size. 2019, can you see straight away there's more of it, but again the important thing for us this evening is that that application site is still in active use for those things. And again, this is right up to date, and this is the most recent Google image that we have. And again, the application site is intact. Here are the buildings. There is that open storage area, the cordon and the apron. But what is not part of the decision or the proposal even is this land here. So please I don't want anybody to be confused by that. We are looking simply at this. So we've got a good body of aerial photographic evidence to support the applicant. In addition to that, however, the report does set out that other evidence has been asked for and has been received, and that's set out on page 57 of your reports. And you'll see there that we have 3 sworn affidavits, and though that's something that somebody goes to a solicitor, they swear on the Bible to say that what they're saying is truthful and honest, and this is their rendition. So the first one is from the previous owner of the land, Mr. John Egerton lives near to the land, and he has stated that since 1982 he can confirm that this land has been in use. And at that time, it was Mr. Hawkin who was the previous owner. We then have one from Mr. Hawkin, John Hawkin. He provided an affidavit, and again, he shared that the application site and the business had been running over that course of time. And then lastly, we have an affidavit from Hugh Roherty, who confirmed that the site had been in use since 1969. That was submitted with the application, as well as aerial photographs. But our legal colleagues did take it upon themselves to ask for more information. It's not in the report because it's business records and there's confidentiality involved in that. But that evidence demonstrated that the intensity of use on the site has been, as it is now, for at least 10 years. So in the balance of probability, there is nothing before us as a local planning authority to question that. We've had no objections from nearby neighbours, and there's been publicity. So as a consequence, we are recommending that that it meets the test, and this is lawful development. And that's what we would like you to approve today. Councillor Holt calls this application in. He wanted to be certain that the evidence was sound, and he wanted it to be aired publicly, which is what we're doing now. Okay, so as I say, the recommendation's approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kim. I think that's pretty clear to us all. It's my responsibility to start the debate. The Council Standing Orders require me to move the motion. Although I'm moving the motion, I'm still undecided on how I will vote. Do I have a second, please? Councillor Davies, thank you very much. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chairman. Just for information, I won't be taking part in the debate or voting on this one, because I've had some dealings over the past 2 years, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chairman. Am I right in thinking that had this not been called in by Councillor Holt, you would have dealt with it under delegated responsibility?
Councillor Allen, yes, that's correct. Yes.
It's just Councillor Holt's wanting it to be aired publicly that that has called it in. That's the only reason.
If I can, Chairman, yes, that's correct. But as I said, he was concerned that the evidence was intact and thorough because of this. Of course, if it's not, it sits in the green belt. So if they cannot demonstrate that that use has been continuous, then it would be an appropriate development in the green belt. But as I've shared with you, this is a legal test. It's not a planning test. So we are duty bound by the evidence we have.
I'd just like to say it's possible, knowing Councillor Holt's legal background, that he felt it appropriate to ask us to consider the decision purely from a legal perspective. Did you wish to carry on?
Yeah, I wouldn't question the fact that Councillor Holt, shouldn't say anything. I just wondered what the if under normal circumstances you would deal with this anyway, and yeah, I can see no reason why we shouldn't go ahead with this. Thank you.
Okay, I can't see any other members wishing to continue the debate, so therefore I'll move to the vote, and the recommendation is one of approval. Those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Chairman, that's unanimous.
Then it will be 9, won't it, David? I beg your pardon. Yes, you're quite correct. Apologies. The application is approved. Thank you very much. We move to the next item on the agenda, which is the application at 176 Tamworth Lane, Shirley, and it starts on page 65 of your papers. Lawrence, that's you this time, isn't it?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This application seeks consent for the demolition of the existing dwelling on this site and the erection of 8 apartments. Could I just draw members' attention to your update note? You'll see on the front page that we've received an additional representation in respect of the application, and we thought it would assist you if we showed you what the extract from the TPO plan on the site that shows what the TPOs have been, or trees have been TPO'd on the site. And you'll see that the request from that additional representation is that they wish to have a management or works condition to those trees to ensure that they're well maintained in the future. That is already proposed as part of your presentation pack in terms of condition 8, which requires a landscape management plan, which we believe covers that representation. Also, for your reference, you'll see that there are actually three trees in group 4 on the TPO that are proposed to be removed as part of this application. Those are at the front of the site at 148, closest to Tamworth Lane. They're the smallest trees to the front there, and are fir trees. And we've also provided a table which shows the existing height of the bungalow adjacent at number 156 and the heights of the apartment proposed in terms of the eaves and ridge heights, so you can see the comparison between the existing and proposed development. If I can just take you through the slides. So this is the application site in red, and you can see the street scene to the top, which shows effectively the apartment block in the form of a large detached dwelling with the dormer bungalows next door, a bungalow, and then the wider street scene where it goes to 2-storey dwellings. And there are some 3-storey Victorian dwellings further down the road in close proximity. Next slide then, please, Kim. It shows the existing site layout and the proposed site layout. You can see that the trees highlighted in red are those small trees that are proposed to remove. Those being the 3 trees at the front, which are form part of that group tree preservation order at the front, and the other trees to the rear, which do not form part of that tree preservation order. You can see that the building sits on the footprint of the existing dwelling, but extends further to the rear of the site, with the 14 car parking spaces to the front and additional landscape planting along the Tamworth Lane frontage. Next slide, Kim, please. These are the elevations. So you can see it is a 3-storey development with rooms, effectively a 3rd storey within the roofscape. You can see it takes the form of a detached dwelling with the form of chimneys, gable fronted development, which is characteristic to the wider locality. Next slide, please. So this just shows you the extracted more detail of the site layout plan. So you can see the areas in purple are the root protection areas of the trees. You can see that we've kept the building is sited well away from that. You can see in blue the site of the existing bungalow and how the building extends back from there into its rear garden and the 14 car parking spaces to the front of the site. Next slide, please. Now we've got a series of photographs. So this shows you the existing bungalow that currently sits on the site there, and to the left are the TPO trees, and those ones that are on the left hand side are proposed to be removed as part of this proposal. Next slide. This is the existing rear garden. You can see it's slightly overgrown, and so some of the vegetation is proposed to be removed from that area of land. Next slide. And we've got then we got the existing rear elevations. It shows the adjacent dwelling at 156 Tamworth Lane and the proposal at 176. Next slide. This just shows you the relationship of the existing bungalow with the adjacent neighbour. You can see how the gable of that bungalow extends further beyond the plane of this property into the garden area. Next slide. And this just shows you the front elevations of 176 and 156 Tamworth Lane and the existing shrubbery to the frontage. Next slide. Then we've got next one. So I've gone too far, I think. This just shows you the trees all planted along the site, the western boundary of the site. These are covered by the TPO and are to be retained and managed as part of one of the proposed conditions proposed for the site. And then the last two slides are just showing you Google Earth images of the site and its relationship in the wider context with the existing development on Tamworth Lane and the sheltered accommodation to effectively the western side of the development site. So the report sets out in detail the material considerations in front of members. The recommendation is one of approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Lawrence. We have 2 representations. The first from Mr. Darren Hayes, which is to be read out. David.
Thank you. This is from Darren Hayes, who's the agent. The proposed development seeks to demolish the existing property to 176 Tamworth Lane and redevelop the site to provide an apartment building comprising 8 apartments. Throughout the design process, we have taken on board all comments from the planning officer and relevant consultees to ensure that the proposal relates well to the surroundings, to achieve a design that respects the character and appearance of the street scene in line with current planning policy. The development makes efficient and effective use of a brownfield site, which has been sensitively designed to appear as a larger dwelling at the end run of Tamworth Lane, rather than your standard apartment block. Minimum distances have been achieved on the site between adjacent properties in accordance with local policy. There have been no objections from highways. Despite there being some tree removal on the site, new tree planting has been proposed in more suitable locations, allowing the more established trees the space they require to grow more healthily, enhancing the current landscape of the site. In summary, it is suggested that the proposal is well designed whilst in accordance with the local planning policy. The development represents an attractive and safe living environment which will enhance the existing street scene along Tamworth Lane. We respectfully request that the proposed scheme is granted approval, and there ends the statement.
Thank you. Second representation is from Councillor Andy Hodgson. Councillor Hodgson, I can see you. Can you hear us, and can we hear you?
Yes, I can see you fine, Chair, and I've just unmuted, so you should be able to hear me.
Yes, I can. Happy New Year to you. And as I know you're aware, you will have 4 minutes to make your representation, Councillor Hodgson.
Okay. I took the opportunity in December when the application was presented to go and talk to the people in the area, and I wasn't surprised when the documentation quoted the numbers of people raising concerns of 62 is quite a significant number for a single, what essentially is a single property development. My main concerns is that this effectively block of flats that's been proposed, it sets a precedent in Tamworth Lane. There's nothing similar in the whole of that area. The other concern, which was reflected by comments I received, was overlooking and overbearing. It not only impacts on adjacent residents, either alongside or across the road, but also has an impact on Shotswell Road and Wakeland Road. In fact, the existing property is quite protected from those roads, but it will have a significant impact. And I don't think the report presented actually reflects that case. I mean, essentially, it's a 2-storey building, but with accommodation on the 3rd floor, which has the combined effect of making the building significantly taller. The bungalow itself is located a similar distance away from the boundary of number 156, which is on the north side of the property. But because of the height, it would have a significant bearing on that property, which needs to be taken into account. One of the strange anomalies that I've noticed on the plan is the parking arrangement. There are 14 parking spaces, but on the south side, there are actually 4 parking spaces on the fence line with 6 parking spaces in front of it. So effectively, those 4 along the fence line, unless the residents actually are very accommodating, they're almost inaccessible. The other thing I am concerned about is the access to Tamworth Lane it's actually going to be wider than the current access, but I don't think it's actually wide enough to allow modern cars to be able to pass each other going in and out of the site. So in essentially, I feel that it's an overdevelopment of the site. And I think from a infrastructure point of view, we are actually going to struggle. Tamworth Lane is a very busy road. I mean, when I visited the site, I had to park along on the roadside, and there were cars parked intermittently on both sides of the road, looking in the north.
Councillor Hodgson, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can I ask you to sum up, please?
Okay. I'm just concerned that it will be actually difficult to achieve what they want to achieve in terms of access to and from the highway without significant impact in other motorists. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is my responsibility to start the debate. The Council's standing orders require me to move the motion. Although I'm moving the motion, I am still undecided on how I'll vote. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Davis, thank you. Taking one of the comments that Councillor Hodgson made in respect to what I would describe as tandem parking, could you just explain to members the scenario there, please, Lawrence?
Thank you. If I've just take you through the highway proposal, because the access is proposed to be moved to a central location on the site frontage and then widened to 5 metres in width. That will allow 2 cars to pass entering the site. So we do have a condition that proposes a car parking management plan on what is the western boundary of the site. If you look at the site layout in your papers, you'll see there's 8 spaces that are in a tandem relationship, and then there's 2 that go further or closer to Tamworth Lane on that side. So that's your 10 spaces to the western boundary, and then 4 spaces along the effectively what is the eastern boundary closest to the neighbouring property, with the space in there to allow a vehicle to effectively reverse out of that space and to leave in a forward gear. Now, my anticipation that would be that car parking management plan, because it's four of the properties are 2-bedroom properties, those tandem spaces will be allocated. That's what normally happens to those properties that are a 2-bed property, and the remainders being for 1 bed, and then some spaces left over for people to utilise. But that is the car parking arrangement at 1.75 spaces per unit. Your highway engineer is quite happy with that provision and doesn't believe that it will lead to overspill parking on the highway to cause any highway safety issues on Tamworth Lane. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Lawrence. And a question from me to your good self as well. On our update note, it states the submission requests a planning condition that seeks to control the future maintenance of the trees. It's understood the existing resident number 10 and 11 Wakeling Road and the car park area of the SCH Tamworth Lane sheltered bungalows have been affected by fallen branches and a lack of maintenance of the large oak trees identified in the extract from the tree preservation order. I would be happy personally to see that condition, unless you tell me it's already covered under other conditions. Chairman, that condition 8 will cover that landscape management plan and ensure that that the post consent that with the applicant does the necessary works. I'm sure he'll want to do that to ensure that nothing falls onto the garden or the new building going forward. So he will undertake a proper arboricultural assessment, tell us or advise the council through that condition what works he seeks to do to ensure that sound agricultural practice and the trees are in good health before that he leaves the site.
Thank you, Lawrence. That helps me personally. Thank you. Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a bit of clarification. I think I already know the answer to this, but I'm presuming that this is not retirement accommodation. And in fact, it is the type of accommodation that we are actually targeting in Solihull. Would that be correct?
That is correct, Chair. It is open market accommodation, 1 and 2 bedroom, which your SPD does seek for the Shirley wards. So that's why we've attributed significant weight in the planning balance, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm sort of in two minds over this. First of all, I do appreciate what Councillor Hodgson has pointed out about the sort of overbearing bit of it. But on the other hand, this is a development of 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom apartments, which in the wider Shirley area is what we as councillors have been asked for to overcome or to offset the building of all of the retirement and accommodation for elderly people in Shirley. So in that respect, it is welcome. I'm not happy about the parking, the tandem parking. I'm not sure that I don't know whether that what Lawrence has said will actually solve the problem, but that's something we shall have to see. But yes, I can't think of any reason why I would refuse this at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. I think my perspective is that based on previous applications that we've seen in the recent past, the parking scenario is actually better than some we've seen. I also quite understand as a ward councillor who has often fought against demolition of properties and changes into apartments, but I actually think this still appears as though it's an individual, albeit a large, single dwelling property that happens to be subdivided into apartments. I can't see. Councillor Ryan's put his hand up. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Chairman. I wonder if you could put the elevation up again, please. I think the design, Chairman, is very pleasing, and there's certain parts that elevation that I would be very excited about and pleased with. I'll say no more than that. But, and I'll keep my thoughts to myself after that. But I think it's very good, Chairman, for apartments and the design and the layout, and I think local residents will be very pleased, should be very pleased, I think, that they're having something being developed in their area that has got style to it and is a very good design. And it's when it's poor design, that's when really it affects the local area. And to me, that's very good. I think there are ample car parking spaces, 14 car parking spaces. I think that's generous in some applications we've seen. Certainly are not that generous, and they're squeezed in. I think it's very good. But then if you look at the non-statutory consultees and you look at the drainage, no objection, highways, no objection, ecology, no objection, urban design, no objection. I would expect them to, if they were unhappy, to say something, but they're not. And then landscaping, no objection. So I will be supporting the application, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. And over the Christmas period, I did think about you when I was watching Mary Poppins, and particularly the chimney sweep scene. Therefore, based on that, I'll move to the vote. The recommendation is one of approval subject to conditions. Sorry, Councillor Clements, before I move to the vote, so I apologise.
Thank you, Chair. All I wanted to say was I thought it was a great addition to the area, and it balances the new family homes development on the other side of the road. But I couldn't spot in the briefing, can we ask for materials to be submitted just to make sure that they are of what we'd expect and what we'd be happy with?
Can you mute your microphone, Councillor Clements?
Yeah, sorry, I did have one other question.
Okay, carry on.
Where's my, right, here we go. So I just wondered, just thoughts on this really. On the first floor, where on the right-hand side, as you're looking at it from the road, there are some windows. Are any of those have to be obscured just for privacy of next door, or is that not something to be concerned about? Just trying to look at it on the plan, it looks as if it could be bathrooms and what have you. It's not a major concern.
First answer the first question, we have a materials condition to be submitted, which is condition 3. And if you look at condition 16, I think it is. Yeah. 17, 18. I'll get there. Yeah, condition 18 does require those side-facing windows to be obscurely glazed to those studies, and so we don't impact and cause any overlooking to the next door neighbour.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? No. Okay, I'll now move to the vote. This time, again, the recommendation is one of approval, subject to conditions. Those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you. The application is approved. That brings us on to the final item on our agenda, that of the delegated decisions, which we've all viewed. Any comments on those, members? No. Therefore, that concludes our business for this evening. Thank you very much, everyone, and safe journey home. Good night.
Members, hello, sorry, just I know.
Apologies, members. Are we now online or offline? Because I know that Kim wanted to just advise us of something in private.